In 1996, a small Brazilian town surrounded by countryside would play host to a string of supernatural events. Was it all just a ploy to increase tourism, or is there any truth to this tale? The Alien of Varginha. It was January of 1996, and the mood amongst the residents in the small Brazilian town of Varginha was upbeat. The recent New Year's celebrations had been a success, and plans were now underway for the Carnival, which would be taking place in February, something of a highlight in the Brazilian calendar for many people. Back in the mid-90s, Varginha was little more than a promise of the thriving city of culture and commerce it would eventually become. Located in the southeastern state of Minas Gerais, it was very much an up-and-coming town. The coffee trade was significant for local employment. Many commuted to nearby cities for work, though some multinational companies had also begun to invest in the region. With its rapid growth and steady stream of outside investment, the residents of Varginha didn't want for much. Compared to the sprawling cityscapes of Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, it was nothing more than a sleepy backwater town where nothing much happened. However, on Saturday the 20th of January, a series of events occurred which were to shake this community to its core. It all started in the very early hours of the morning at a farm situated on the outskirts of town. Eurico Rodrigues, who lived and worked as a farmhand, along with his partner, Aurelina Augusta, was awoken at around 1:30 a.m. by the unsettling sounds of panicked bleating and mooing from their livestock. Initially, they considered that one of the animals may have escaped, or that maybe there was a thief or predator on the prowl. They were absolutely dumbstruck when they looked out of the window and saw that it was actually a UFO that was troubling the animals. The description given for the strange craft was a grey submarine-like object in the sky, about the size of a small bus. It was said to have been completely silent, with no lights whatsoever. The cows and sheep were in a disoriented state, and it is believed that the craft was visible for around 5 minutes before disappearing from view. Despite their encounter, Eurico and Aurelina decided not to report their sighting to authorities for fear of being ridiculed or labelled as hoaxers. Unknown to them at the time, the ramifications of what they had just witnessed would not hit home until a few days later, when they read reports of possible UFO activity and even alien sightings in and around the town in the local press. One of these accounts would stand out amongst all others, and came from a pair of sisters who lived with their mother in the hilly suburban outskirts of town. The Silva family resided in the Santana district, and though aged only 14 and 16 years, Valkyria and Liliana Silva were beginning to mature into responsible and reliable young women. Later on that same day, hours after the Rodrigues and Augusta sighting, the teenagers had met with their older friend Katia Xavier, who worked as a cleaner in the nearby Jardim Mendia district. The three of them regularly walked home together. It was a case of safety in numbers, and they just so happened to enjoy each other's company. On that fateful day, the group decided to take a shortcut home through the small woods that separated their two neighbourhoods. After walking through a section of woodland in Jardim Mendia, they arrived at a fallow, but were suddenly startled by a strange-looking entity less than 7 meters in front of them. There was something crouching down near a wall, which they initially thought was some kind of animal, but its grotesque appearance and odd behaviour unnerved them. As they approached, the creature turned its head in their direction and stared directly at them, with terrifying bright red eyes. What it did, or where it went after that point, is not known, as needless to say, the girls immediately fled the scene in horror. Upon arriving back home, the Silver sisters were said to have burst in through the front door in floods of tears. Even after some comforting, the youngest, Liliana, was inconsolable for some time. When their mother asked them what they had seen to make them so upset, they simply replied, "We saw the devil." It wasn't long before the local press got wind of the story, and by the following day, Brazil's most watched Sunday TV show, Fantástico, sensationally announced the news that an extraterrestrial being had been spotted in Varginha. However, rumours were rife amongst the locals that there had in fact been multiple sightings of aliens roaming the streets during the previous day. The feeling in town was one of confusion and concern, with the majority of residents just trying to piece together exactly what had happened. Katia Xavier later gave a description of the creature they saw, saying it was a small, emaciated, non-human, non-animal being with brown skin, an oily appearance, and an overly large head, with 3 rounded extrusions or possibly even horns adorning the top of its skull. People came forward to say that they too had witnessed further alien or UFO activity. According to some reports, as many as 200 residents have given accounts in the time since the event, bearing witness to the fact that they saw extraterrestrials, with many descriptions matching that given by Katia. Even some military and government personnel began to come forward and give their versions of events, though their identities have remained anonymous for obvious reasons. There was a military base very close to the farm at Três Corações, about 16 kilometers outside of Varginha itself, and it is presumed that this is where some of the information may have been leaked from. One source in particular revealed how the aliens were rounded up and captured like animals by military firefighters before being transported out of the town through the woods under cover of darkness. Upon capture, the aliens were said to make some kind of buzzing sound, similar to the drone of a beehive. It is even suggested that the military took the aliens by road to Brasilia, and were then secretly dispatched to the US by air, where they were killed and dissected. Another interesting, yet unconfirmed claim involving the US suggests that the North American Aerospace Defense Command actually issued a warning to their Brazilian counterparts at Sindacta about an hour before the sighting at the farm. Apparently, the United States government had intelligence about a possible UFO landing somewhere in the state of Minas Gerais, and they tried to pre-warn the Brazilian authorities. If correct, it somewhat supports the Rodrigues and Augusta UFO sighting near Três Corações, and adds weight to the claim that aliens were sent back to the United States. Though never validated by the farmhands, a government source has even said that a cigar-shaped UFO crash-landed in a field just outside of Três Corações, and that he was part of a clean-up operation to remove the debris. A crash certainly seems a more plausible explanation as to why extraterrestrials were seen roaming the countryside, rather than for a UFO to have simply dropped them off and left them behind. Of course, most of these reports are unconfirmed, and it is difficult to discern between what is true and what is fabricated. After all, many eyewitnesses only came forward after the televised report of the sighting by the 3 young women. Were they all simply jumping on the bandwagon for financial gain? Or did a UFO land, or possibly even crash in Varginha during the night? Perhaps best placed to answer this question is Ubirajara Rodrigues, a resident of Varginha in 1996, and coincidentally, a part-time ufologist. He has worked hard on this case, looking for new leads and visiting suspected hotspots across the city. Working with Vittorio Paccaccini from nearby Belo Horizonte, the pair have garnered valuable insight from key witnesses, including Katia Xavier and the Silva family. It transpires that in February of 1996, a couple of weeks after the alien sighting, the Silva family received an unexpected visit from 4 men in dark suits. The girl's mother, Louisa, arrived home to find the men already at the property and in conversation with her daughters. They asked the girls if they were willing to deny their sighting of the alien. The men offered a large cash sum, but left without identifying themselves. Could the famed men in black have been involved in this case? It would certainly seem so if Louisa's story is to be believed. But given their somewhat fleeting and relatively unnoticed appearance, what was their role, and just how deep did their involvement in this case go? Were they even part of a government investigation, or something far more sinister? Much of Rodriguez's early work questions how the aliens were able to travel around the city, how they were then captured by the military and disposed of without there being a public outcry. His conclusions are that whilst many people claim to have seen aliens and others saw the military presence, no one saw any events that took place between the two. Indeed, some criticism has been levelled at Rodriguez's work. He previously claimed that the alien autopsies were carried out by Dr. Badan Palares. Nonetheless, Palares himself publicly denied any involvement in the affair in 2012. As for some people testifying that they had seen firefighters assisting in the capture of the aliens, it is important to consider that, like many countries, both the fire service and the police in Brazil are an extension of the military. Specially trained firefighters may have been used. However, despite compelling testimony from residents, a wealth of international attention and even endorsement from the city council, the Brazilian government maintains that it did not facilitate the capture of extraterrestrial entities. But then, of course, it would, given the potential ramifications of admitting such a thing. So, if no supernatural incident took place, and this is all merely the product of hysteria, hearsay and conjecture, what was it that the girls saw in the woods that day? Katia and the Silva sisters have remained steadfast in their recollection of events, and it has to be said that their account seems genuine, and the manner in which they tell their story is very convincing. When revisiting the area of woodland with Rodriguez in 2003, the women were said to be visibly upset. But if the official reports are to be believed, the creature they saw was nothing more than a case of mistaken identity. It may sound callous, but the theory goes that the young women were simply spooked by a deformed and malnourished homeless man. The disproportionately thin body given to the description of the alien tallies with this notion, and it is thought that the brown skin may come from the individual either being covered in mud or the result of too much exposure to the sun over time. Internet sources vary greatly as to the homeless man's name, from Little Louis to Mugino, with some sources even claiming to have photographs of this man. For some, questions remain as to what extent it is by design rather than default that the city of Varginha has been able to benefit so greatly from the supposed arrival of otherworldly beings. The event has assisted in the city's sustained growth and prosperity, helping a small town become a vibrant commercial and cultural centre. And it's easy to see why many people view the events of the 20th of January 1996 with such scepticism, purporting that they were well-orchestrated hoaxes engineered towards that goal. Thanks to widespread media coverage, the small town of Varginha has received international notoriety and an influx of alien-related tourism. In fact, since events in 1996, the city has remained very much in the supernatural spotlight. For instance, 2001 saw the construction of a 20-foot high water tower, the Nave Espacial de Varginha, a disc-shaped monument to commemorate the event. In 2004, the town was also host to ufologists and researchers from across the globe when it held the UFO Congress of Varginha. However, an influx in tourism as a result of this event should not automatically delegitimize claims long held by the residents of the city. There are examples of other towns which have succeeded following supposed supernatural activity, such as Point Pleasant and, of course, Roswell. The simple truth is that so many people believe that something out of the ordinary did occur in that small town back in January of 1996, and whilst it is possible that some eyewitness accounts were fabricated, surely not all of them were. With all things considered, we are no more qualified than anyone else to say what did or did not happen. It has been more than 20 years since the incident took place. Only Katia, Valkyria and Liliane know for sure what they saw that day, and unfortunately for them, it will forever haunt their nightmares. For the rest of us, however, it will forever pique our interest and be left at the mercy of speculation.